Imagine a towering paradise, rising like a green mountain from the dusty plains of Mesopotamia. Exotic plants cascade down terraced fortifications, their roots fed by an impossible perpetual motion of water. It is a botanical miracle built for a queen far from home, weeping for the green hills of her youth. This is the enduring image of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It is a story of romance, engineering prowess, and imperial grandeur. But there is a problem, a massive problem. After centuries of searching, after turning over every stone in the ancient city of Babylon, archaeologists have found nothing. Not a single brick, not a single irrigation pipe, not a single contemporary text, which forces us to ask a terrifying question for historians. What if the most famous garden in history never actually existed? Or, perhaps even more intriguingly, what if we have been looking for it in the wrong city and the wrong century entirely? To solve this cold case, we first have to understand the suspect. The traditional narrative places us in the 6th century BCE, in the glittering capital of the neo-babylonian empire. The king is Nebuchadnezzar II, the builder king of the Bible, the man who destroyed Solomon's temple. Legend tells us he married Amytas of Media to seal a political alliance. But Amytas despised the flat, sun-scorched plains of Babylon. She pined for the rugged, forested mountains of her homeland in modern-day Iran. So, out of love, Nebuchadnezzar ordered the construction of an artificial mountain. A structure so complex it required a waterproofing system of lead and reeds to stop the moisture from rotting the foundation, and a mechanical system to pump water from the Euphrates River up to the skies. It is a beautiful story. It humanizes a tyrant. But when the German archaeologist Robert Koldewey excavated Babylon between 1899 and 1917, he uncovered the foundations of the Tower of Babel. He found the Ishtar Gate. He found the processional way. But of the gardens? He found only confusion. Here is the first psychological loop in our mystery: the silence. The Babylonians were obsessive bureaucrats. We have tablets detailing the rations of oil given to captives. We have receipts for wool. We have Nebuchadnezzar's own inscriptions where he brags, at exhausting length, about his architectural achievements. He lists the temples he restored, the walls he strengthened, the streets he paved. He practically lists the number of bricks he baked. And yet, regarding the wonder of the world that supposedly defined his reign, absolute silence. Not one word. So, where does the story come from? This brings us to our unreliable narrators. While the story of the homesick queen is compelling, its origins are surprisingly thin. Every account we have of the Hanging Gardens comes from Greek and Roman writers living centuries after Nebuchadnezzar was dead. The earliest source was Berossus, a Babylonian priest writing in Greek around 290 BC, nearly 300 years after the fact. His original work is lost. We only know what he said because later writers quoted him. Then there's Diodorus Siculus and Strabo, writing in the 1st century BCE. Think of this like trying to reconstruct the details of the American Revolutionary War based solely on rumors heard in a London pub today, without access to a single document from 1776. These Greek historians were describing a region they often had not visited, or were relying on soldiers' tales from Alexander the Great's conquests. When Alexander's soldiers arrived in Babylon, the city was already in decline. They saw ruins. They saw canals. They heard legends. And like tourists everywhere, they conflated stories. They mixed up kings. They mixed up gods. And, crucially, They may have mixed up cities. This brings us to a radical theory proposed by Oxford Assyriologist Dr. Stephanie Daly. What if the Hanging Gardens were real, but they were never in Babylon at all? If not Babylon, then where? Recent scholarship points to a surprising contender, the Assyrian capital of Nineveh, located near modern-day Mosul. And the builder wasn't the romantic Nebuchadnezzar, but the formidable Neo-Assyrian ruler, Sennacherib. Sennacherib is best known to history as a destroyer, the man who besieged Jerusalem and razed Babylon to the ground in 689 BCE. But his own inscriptions tell a different story. He was an engineering genius obsessed with water. Unlike the silence of Babylon, the stones of Nineveh scream the truth. In his palace reliefs, we see gardens. We see colonnades supporting trees. We see irrigation channels high up on artificial terraces. Sennacherib's inscriptions boast of a massive canal network stretching 50 kilometers to bring water from the mountains. He describes a device remarkably similar to an Archimedes screw, a bronze casting method used to raise water to great heights, centuries before Archimedes was even born. He calls this creation his palace without a rival. He explicitly describes raising the height of the surroundings to create a wonder for all peoples. The physical evidence at Nineveh matches the Greek descriptions of the Hanging Gardens far better than anything found in Babylon. We even have the smoking gun, the Jerwan aqueduct. It contains an inscription where Sennacherib brags about directing water to his gardens. It is a monumental piece of infrastructure that predates Roman aqueducts by centuries. So, why the confusion? Why did history give the credit to Babylon? The answer lies in a linguistic trap. After Sennacherib conquered Babylon, the Assyrians sometimes referred to their own capital, Nineveh, as New Babylon. They even renamed the city gates of Nineveh after Babylonian gods. To a Greek traveler arriving centuries later, distinguishing between Old Babylon and New Babylon cities, both crumbled to dust, would have been nearly impossible. But whether they stood in Babylon or Nineveh, an engineering marvel of this scale doesn't just vanish. Stone crumbles, yes, but massive aqueducts leave scars on the earth. So, how did the wonder die? If the gardens were in Babylon, their disappearance is easily explained by the medium itself. Mesopotamian architecture relied heavily on mud brick. Without constant maintenance, mud brick dissolves. A few decades of neglect, a shift in the Euphrates riverbed, and the mountain would erode into a shapeless mound of dirt. But if the gardens were in Nineveh, their destruction was far more violent and ironic. In 612 BCE, an alliance of Medes and, yes, Babylonians sacked Nineveh. The hatred for the Assyrians ran deep. When the coalition forces breached the walls, they didn't just loot. They sought to erase the city from memory. They targeted the water systems. This is the critical failure point. A hanging garden is a biological machine. It requires a constant, pumped flow of water. The moment the aqueducts were breached and the sluice gates smashed, the clock started ticking. Within weeks, the exotic flowers withered. Within months, the great trees died. The roots that held the soil together rotted, and the artificial terraces began to collapse. The wonder died not with a bang, but with a thirst. This leads us to the final, profound irony of this mystery. The Babylonians, led by Nebuchadnezzar's father, destroyed Nineveh. They smashed the aqueducts that fed the gardens. They erased the Assyrian capital so thoroughly that within 2 centuries, passing armies didn't even know a city had stood there. But in destroying the reality, they inadvertently stole the legend. As the Greeks tried to make sense of the ruins of Mesopotamia, they took the stories of the Assyrian garden, the engineering, the beauty, the scale, and grafted them onto the city of the conquerors. The Hanging Gardens became the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. The victim's greatest achievement was attributed to the victor. It is a theft of intellectual property on an imperial scale, lasting 2,500 years. Today, the Hanging Gardens exist primarily in our collective imagination. They are a symbol of human defiance against nature, the desire to build a mountain where there is none, to create life in the desert. Whether they were a love letter from a Babylonian king to his wife, or a display of power by an Assyrian tyrant, the lesson remains the same. We build our paradises, we divert our rivers, and we raise our stone. But in the end, history is written not by the builders, but by the storytellers. What do you believe? Did the gardens crumble into the Euphrates, or were they buried under the ashes of Nineveh? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us. Till next time.